Because every era, everybody's always been interested in what's current, and what was in the past has always taken a little bit more effort to go get.
New is cool. The idea that there are things in the past that are every bit as cool or even cooler than things today. I think people are just not programmed to see things like that.
Film stock improved like hugely over the next 10 years, and he could have accomplished so much more.
Hi, I'm Sarah Beck, and I'm an ambitious college student pursuing an acting degree. On top of that, I'm not as hip with today's modern culture, but that's okay, because I prefer art from the past. Ever since I was little, I became accustomed to the Beatles, Huey Lewis and the News, Aretha Franklin, and many more. I also was exposed to several films like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, To Kill a Mockingbird, and Singing in the Rain. It's all thanks to my father, Dana Beck. Born in 1954, he grew up with these films and thought it would be the right thing to do and share them with my sister and me. Back in his prime, he was a jazz drummer who toured around the country. He was vigorous in the arts and came from a family background of performers. With all of his upbringing and later his own taste, what could his favorite film of all time possibly be? Rear Window. I wanted to go in depth with this film in particular. I have become so grateful for what I have learned from my father's generation. I like that I'm different, all thanks to my taste in older films like Rear Window.
You don't know the meaning of the word neighbor. Neighbors like each other, speak to each other, care if anybody lives or dies. But none of you do. But I couldn't imagine any of you being so low that you'd kill a little helpless, friendly dog. The only thing in this whole neighborhood who liked anybody.
Hello?
Hi, this is Sarah Beck from Shenandoah University. Is this...
Hey, hi, Sarah.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good.
The meaning of the film is something that's humanly made by the people who are interacting with it, not just Hitchcock, but the film itself and other cultural artifacts vary in their coherence and their multivocality.
It's an amazing film. There are maybe a half dozen movies ever made that are really perfect. A lot of great, wonderful, works of genius, but Rear Window is a perfect movie, not a wasted line, wasted scene, wasted frame in that movie.
Hitchcock's films prior to the 50s were shot in black and white. He built a set, a replica of this Greenwich Village apartment complex that was quite remarkable. It was one of the most complicated sets ever devised. Greenwich Village. The fact that a lot of artists lived there at that time. That's very different today. It's been very uppified, and you have to be super rich to be able to afford a townhouse or an apartment in Greenwich Village. But back in the early 50s, there was affordable housing.
Not just the production value, because I think that's really important, but I think one of the big reasons why Hitch endures is because his movies really are about filmmaking. They're kind of like, they're almost like a book of philosophy expressed as film.
Rear Window comes out, and it has everything. It has big stars.
It gives me enormous pleasure to be able to present this trophy to you, Mr. Stewart, for the best acting in a picture for 1940. That picture was The Philadelphia Story.
Grace Kelly for the country girl.
You know, two of the hottest stars at that time. Jimmy Stewart was huge, you know, at that time. And Grace Kelly was just sort of getting started.
So Rear Window is very much about urban life, urban living, and city living. And what does it mean to live in a crowded city and yet not really know your neighbors? And that's something that we're identifying with, you know, to this day. James Stewart is in sitting in the privacy of his home where he can watch all of his neighbors while he himself is more or less unseen, puts him in a panopticon environment. And it's almost a godlike position that he occupies. And sure enough, he catches, you know, a crime being committed, and he works to save the day. And that's become a metaphor for, you know, modern concerns regarding privacy and governmental intrusion into our private lives through modern technology.
Principle that Hitchcock employs consistently throughout the film, that zeroes in on sort of the subjectivity of the shot, getting the audience to see the world from the perspective of one of the characters.
Look, the wedding ring. Turn out the light, he's seen him.
It's all about voyeurism and and what it means to, you know, kind of look in on other people's lives. You know, that's a universal human impulse. But even more so now in the era of social media, when we're all voyeuring and exhibitionizing ourselves on social media. So what does that mean to live in a world where, you know, everyone is visible to everybody?
Filmmakers love this film because it's so cinematic, and the voyeurism is something that other filmmakers have picked up over the years and have appropriated Hitchcock's techniques. They've learned, many of them have learned the art of film by observing Hitchcock film.
Well, just starting with Alfred Hitchcock, the reason, you know, he's maintained his cultural significance for the last, you know, more than 60 years, almost the last century, is because he's the Shakespeare of 20th century cinema. And his films wrote the book, you could say, on how to make movies in the 20th century.
It was his first big hit in the 1950s. And the critics loved it, partly because they thought he had returned to form. And this was the Hitchcock that they loved. It was a suspense director, was into romance in some of his films, and certainly in Rear Window, and a resolution at the end where everything is fine, kind of a typical Hollywood ending.
Almost half of his films were actually made during the silent era, so he developed his directorial chops using, you know, in the sound era, or in the silent era.
He was a terrific businessman, and he wanted people to know that he was behind his film. He was the director. The main force in his films were not the actors and not the writers, but the director. That other filmmakers have picked up over the years and have appropriated Hitchcock's techniques. They've learned, many of them have learned the art of film by observing Hitchcock film.
So he was there for, you know, every technological advancement, and he was studying it. He was figuring out what worked. He was introducing a lot of concepts that we still use, you know, a lot of techniques that we still use today. People, you know, directors and audiences return to that movie because it's a perennial, universal touchstone for whatever is happening currently in life.
Do you know who Alfred Hitchcock is?
Yes. No.
Do you know who Alfred Hitchcock is? You guys help me?
Oh gosh. Oh my god, this is terrible. I know the name and I know he's really famous. Isn't he a writer?
I do. I feel like you get love.
No. No.
No? That's embarrassing. Is he a director?
Yes. Oh god, you're gonna put me on the spot.
Alfred Hitchcock. He's the one who did Psycho, right? Yes.
Yes.
He's a director. So I'm as close with writer.
I know.
I feel like he's like the film noir movies. Oh god, that's terrible. But yeah, I've heard of him. He made some movie. Did he make that Benjamin Button movie?
No.
Oh.
If we're going to watch a Hitchcock film or any classic film, then we're going to, have to watch it not as just, entertainment that we fall off the couch and go do, but we're kind of like, we have to make an extra effort to see it because it's now not just art, but an artifact.
Film critics are guilty because films will come out, contemporary films, new films, that are very Hitchcockian. But they're not going to mention Hitchcock's name because their readers don't know Hitchcock, and it won't mean anything to them.
My favorite movie of all time, I think, is Wizard of Oz. Classic. I've seen part 2 of Mockingjay.
Saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, I saw the new James Bond movie.
Cheaper by the Dozen 2.
Pitch Perfect. First and second.
Blindside.
Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly. No. Have you heard of it?
What's it called?
Rear Window.
I haven't heard of it.
No, but that sounds amazing.
Have I seen what?
Rear Window.
No.
I find that with many people, they look at a film and they look at its content only and never seem to study, I'm talking about the critical faculty, what was there in the film to make an audience go through these various emotions.
Sarah, back, take 6.
State your name, and if you can use this in the film.
Oh, it's actually not bad, actually. I'm getting it. Word. Still Magnolia. Still, what is that flower? Magnolia. Okay, I watched Magnolia. Yeah.
1925, he made his debut as a director, and he still is contributing to a body of work so distinctive that his name has passed into the language. The name, of course, is Alfred Hitchcock.